Welcome to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. I'm Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. At Finstrat, we provide CFO-led accounting, finance, and reporting services to assist clients monetize their business. Stick around to the end of the podcast and I'll share how you can be our next guest. Now on to the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Innovators and Investors Podcast. I'm your host, Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. With us today, we have Andrew Duffell. Andrew is the president of Research Park at Florida Atlantic. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, really glad to have you on. So if we can start, let's unpack Research Park at the university. What's the focus?
Well, our focus is really to support the research enterprise at Florida Atlantic University and to enhance the student experience. And we do that by bringing innovators from the private sector to the university, to this campus, which is adjacent to the university's main campus, and facilitate introductions and make sure that these bright entrepreneurs and larger business executives are in frequent contact with the research faculty of the university and with the students to see what new innovations can emerge and how the students can get careers started or test out different careers through internships in the research park, and most importantly, see what's possible as they go through their educational career. See what's possible here in South Florida without having to go out of state to find a great job. So we're demonstrating that to them, and hopefully along the way commercializing some of the research that comes out of the labs at Florida Atlantic University, which are increasingly active.
And does this include graduate and postgraduate?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
We've had faculty members go on to apply for joint research grants to various federal departments alongside our companies and PhDs within those companies as they train postdocs and who are looking for greater opportunities. So that's been done frequently and something we very much encourage.
Fantastic. And how long has the park been around?
This is our 40th anniversary.
Wow.
We were created in 1985.
And how long have you been serving as president?
I've been here in this role for 14 years, almost 15.
And so, I probably devote a podcast to the evolving secondary education landscape, but broadly speaking, in your past 14 years, how have you seen things evolve?
In tertiary education overall?
Yeah, yes, and then the intersection with entrepreneurship and the broader economy at large.
There's been a tremendous realization in higher education that entrepreneurship is a very serious part of economic growth. And so they being the academy writ large, have really embraced all that means. And that's teaching entrepreneurship. And that's a debate whether it can be taught or whether it's innate. But also in supporting student entrepreneurs who may have an idea simply in their dorm room and helping them make it into a real company and see if it can be made sustainable. So there have been a lot of incubators that have emerged, sponsored by universities, and some of the larger universities have set up funds from their foundation to be able to seed those companies. So over the time that I've been involved, I think entrepreneurship has become a mainstay of most colleges of business across the country. It certainly has been here at Florida Atlantic. In 2014, together with the Research Park, the university created what is known as Tech Runway, which is a building within the Research Park owned by the university, specifically to take a cohort of entrepreneurs through the stages of building a company and trying to get minimal viable products out to market, testing them, gathering investors before they can graduate and become fully fledged commercial ventures on their own. And that's been successful since then. They had some money at the beginning from the legislature. Others since then has really been revenues and donations generated from within the program. But that's been a great feeder for us in the research park, and obviously a great attractor for the university as a whole to know that those kinds of opportunities exist for undergraduates and postgraduates as they go through their academic careers. They also have the ability to begin their careers really and see if they succeed right out of the gate or if they need to fail a couple of times first. So we've embraced all of those different initiatives. We've been involved in some of them within on campus, and others are more student-centric and led by students without outside involvement.
And what is your opinion? Can entrepreneurship be taught?
I think that the burning desire to build a company or build something really meaningful for the world is a drive, an ambition that you're probably born with or develop as a young person for a particular need. But then the other skills around building the company and going out looking for investors, even if it's not necessarily taught, certainly the techniques are introduced and guide the entrepreneur towards those sources and advice and mentorship. Whether or not they're willing to take it and follow advice is a different subject. But I think anyone who's got a skill set can always use feedback and refining their skills. So yes, I think that entrepreneurship courses do have a significant value to the overall learning experience of a business major.
And do you find that the staff and mentors who work with students, is there any is it a lot of grads? Is it local business owners? And if so, is there? We know Florida has a big space hub. Any industries in particular that you find that the park gravitates towards?
So as far as the mentors and advisors go, it's a mixed bag. There are graduate students who like to get involved, but I would say the majority of them are local business people who have a particular skill set, whether it's in legal or accounting or overall business. They're very excited to donate their time to see the energy and ideas that young people have and help guide them along the way. That's an enriching experience for a lot of them. As far as specific industries, Tech Runway is open. It doesn't really have an industry focus, but we do in the research park. And so I think a lot of that sort of has been adopted just by the kinds of applicants that have been applying. So we focus generally on the areas that the university's researchers have particular depths of knowledge and expertise. So those very broadly defined would be life sciences or health sciences, the management of health. And that ranges from things like the design and manufacture of medical devices through software that is used to manage doctors' practices, for example, and everything in between. What we don't have is drug discovery companies. Those tend to gravitate to the university's other campus, which is about 40 miles from here, where they have their own basic researchers who collaborate with those earlier stage companies. So in the research park, we have the pure startups that the university is mentoring and growing with Tech Runway. And the idea then is when they successfully complete that program and do have investors and customers and products, then they come to our incubator, which is specifically designed for second stage companies. And we define that a second stage company as one that has a few employees, say half a dozen, and is getting towards having $1 million in revenue and is in one of these core areas for us. So I should back up. As well as the life sciences bucket, we also focus heavily on advanced engineering, including all things like AI and everything that goes into all the data analysis and mechanical engineering and what have you. Those tend to cut across a lot of industries. So we see them popping up within the life science space as well. The university has great strength in sensors and autonomous vehicles and things like that. So we've got sort of a dual focus. And so we gather these graduate companies, these second stage companies, and give them different resources. They now don't need to know how to build a financial model. They need different skill sets that involve market intelligence, how to pitch to larger customers, larger investors, and connections to those bigger suppliers and vendors and potential clients. So we take them and hope to supercharge them to become tens of millions of dollars in revenue and very sustainable, with an eye to having them populate and reside in the research park over the long haul. So that's sort of the life stage of companies through the different programs within the research park. And so we've developed a pretty good system with that. One of our biggest and most successful graduate is a company that's now called ModMed, that started with us back in 2012, doing healthcare practice management, billing summaries, coding, diagnostics, prescriptions, photographs of patients and so on, all on an iPad back in 2010, 11, 12. That was still quite novel. Doing that with about 12 people. They joined us, and then they took on 15,000 square feet and then 50,000 square feet with about 300 people. And they outgrew the facilities we had available for them here in the research park. So because we're a regional organization, we tried to foster economic development throughout the region. We supported their move out and to stay within the city of Boca Raton. And they did. There's the original IBM facility where the original PC was developed, is right across the highway from our park. And they landed there. They continue to grow. Now they employ approximately 2,000 people and gross over $500 million. And they're valued at their last transaction at $5.3 billion. So it's been done. We've had other successes, just not that eye-popping. So we're trying to replicate that across smaller companies and growing them to be meaningful contributors to the university and to the community. The aim being to create meaningful, well-paid jobs in this region so people don't have to leave to get good jobs, and who can afford to live in this beautiful community with its growth, particularly since the end of the pandemic. There's been a huge influx of people, and so the cost of living has increased substantially. So we're trying to make sure that the people who've lived here a long time have the ability to rise with that overall cost increase and continue to thrive here.
Well, it sounds like you said it was ModSense?
ModMed.
ModMed. Well, congratulations. Sounds like a great testament to the work that the organization is doing. Earlier you mentioned financing. So will the park take a stake, or the university take a stake, or is there a separate fund where you may invest?
So to date, the answer is no. The university has created an angel network associated with Tech Runway, but it is not funded by the university. And with us in the park, we're a separate legal entity from the university. We have not taken any positions in the companies because our reason for existing is to foster economic development. So by growing those companies, that's our contribution and our reward. But we have considered ways to do that or to enable us to generate more revenues to do the same service for more companies. So we've created a 501c3, and we're looking at ways to stand that up and potentially participate in the growth of some of the ventures over the long term. Fantastic.
And then, there's similar, or I've come across similar initiatives throughout the country, universities doing similar things. But in your now 14 years experience, what are some of the headwinds that you've encountered? And, maybe you can offer up some solutions as well as you've encountered them.
I think, well, first of all, we have looked far and wide, and we haven't found another physical incubator that is tailored specifically to second stage companies. Okay. There are plenty for startup companies. And our thesis is, what then? You've been in a great incubator. You know to get to that stage. then you're left alone until you get to be a unicorn or a multi-$100 million company. Who's filling that gap? And so right now we think we're on our own in that gap, serving that second stage entrepreneur who still needs help, not as hands-on and different help, but it's still help that he or she needs. So that's been challenging in having people understand what we're offering, but very rewarding when we see people flocking to us when they understand, and then some of the successes that we've been able to generate in the 5 years that the incubator has been focused in this way. And why don't we call it Tech Runway? Because we're looking for the best technologists from wherever they happen to be from. Right now, we've got about 12 different countries represented within our incubator.
And why don't you think there aren't more organizations throughout the country or world, for that matter, who are following similar suit?
I think the short answer is that people, the public, policymakers are impatient. So they want a flashy success quickly in a startup, and then 100 job announcements they can make and ribbons they can cut on the other end. The work we do is to outsiders and to people who think like that boring. We generate maybe 5 jobs in a company 1 month, or 2 the following month, or maybe a dozen, but those don't grab headlines. We're doing the quiet work that's really creating solidifying the foundation for the company so that it can soar in growth and sustain that level, so that it is employing hopefully big numbers of people and certainly pumping a lot of economic activity into the regional economy. So I would imagine that part of the challenge is funding and getting policymakers to get behind something that is like that.
And do you find yourself having to spend a lot of time with the Office of the Governor or other administrators in order to?
We don't get state funding. We get we have a contract with our county, Palm Beach County, and with our host city, the city of Boca Raton. And both of them have embraced what we've done, or even as we planned it and told them what we were planning, they embraced the approach. They appreciated it because they knew of the incubators in the region and about Tech Runway, understood that space was well represented and had good resources. And as we explained, the next stage doesn't. And so they've gone on the journey with us, and we're very grateful for that faith in us. And they're seeing that the results come forward from all of those efforts. So we've been very fortunate. I've always had good relations with all of the council members and commission members, so that is not a brand new education process every time someone's elected or reelected, but it's more of a just understanding that this is part of the county's economic development strategy, how we're really filling the whole ecosystem or life stage of an entrepreneur. So we've been very fortunate.
I mean, it seems really easy to connect the dots. So kudos to them for being on board. So you mentioned you joined, I think, 14 years ago, so 2011. What was the career path leading up to joining the research part?
I was already in Palm Beach County. I had, for the previous 5 years, I had been a senior vice president with the county's economic development organization. And my role was to recruit companies from out of market into Palm Beach County to establish themselves and create jobs. And I loved it. I did pretty well at it. But I started to see the obvious, that I was selling Palm Beach County as it is, warts and all. I felt that I had an opportunity to help shape what Palm Beach County looked like if I could work with the smaller companies, the emerging companies, and help them be really successful. And thereby the rest of the county would look much more attractive and attract the kinds of people that the county wants to attract. Highly educated people who are willing to invest in the community and have these jobs stay in Palm Beach County, built by Palm Beach County residents for the long-term benefit of the overall economy. And so I the position here came open at exactly the right time. And I jumped over and convinced the board to hire me. And since then, we've enjoyed a very strong relationship, built some 2 or 3 very strong strategic plans. We're about to do another for 2026 through or 2025 through 2028. That is very exciting. Each time we go through the process, the university has increased its own quality and its own output. So we keep, improving together and enhancing the attractiveness of each other. So it continues to be a great experience. And I think that we have made a difference in the makeup and appearance and attractiveness of the whole county. You can see now, Ken Griffin is investing heavily in Miami, not necessarily here, although there are some employees of his here. Stephen Ross, a big New York developer and owner of the Dolphins, is investing very heavily in this county and bringing with them very sophisticated technology companies that can only really be attracted if they know that their employees will be around smart people and have the right kinds of things to do on off hours that stimulate the mind of very smart people. So we have a very lively cultural scene. You can participate in each of the major league sports in South Florida, go to the game and be home in your own bed the same night. So we've got the sea, we've got the Everglades, we've got beautiful biking trails and so on. So we have to, if we didn't have those things, it would be much more difficult to attract extremely smart people who want to live in a place where they're continually intellectually stimulated and not just at work. So together we've created that, I think. And, you can see the numbers of people moving into Florida and the money they're bringing with them very clearly.
It sounds like I made a mistake of not insisting this interview was in your office. Don, I'm so
very welcome next time.
Thank you. Well, having been there, I know how appealing the city and the general state is, and but you also still have to compete. We know that there are counties and states throughout the country who are making best efforts. So has there ever been any discussion around like tax incentives or other financial offers to encourage entrepreneurs to start their company?
For many years, Florida did offer pretty substantial incentives, and many of the counties and cities did as well. My biggest project before I left my previous role was to recruit the Basic Science Research Institute from Germany called the Max Planck Society. They didn't have any facility outside of the Eastern Hemisphere. So we worked with them to establish their first America's Research Institute with Florida Atlantic University. And between all of the different state governments, they were awarded almost $90 million in incentives. Since then, there have been successive governors, obviously, different members of the legislature, and the philosophy has evolved to not give cash incentives or specific tax breaks to recruited companies, but rather have a very favorable environment, regulatory and tax, as standard to attract companies. So we have no personal income tax in the state of Florida. That's in the Constitution. The corporate tax rate is 5.5%, and most companies don't ever end up having to pay it because of the way they structure their own companies. And to have a very highly educated mobile workforce, and to make the state an attractive place, as I just discussed, with cultural amenities and a great quality of life. Very high quality universities as well. U.S. News and World Report has rated Florida's universities #1 for, I think, the last 9 years. So together as a state, we've done pretty well. And the big corporations and individual entrepreneurs continue to come, and some, like the ones we work with a lot, are growing their own companies and having them stay here because of that environment, as well as all of the other things. And we work very hard with local CEOs or people from outside of town, we work very hard with them to establish them with very deep roots in the community. So we introduce them to, advisory boards at the university, chambers of commerce, and even religious organizations. And they start to get on those boards, and they start to have their children attend those kinds of events and programs. They start investing their own dollars in those places. And so they become a genuine part of the overall community. So when Texas, for example, calls ModMed, for example, and they do frequently, and says, we'll give you $50 million to move, the opportunity cost is too great to pick everyone up, annoy them by moving them out of the place they love and are very deeply entrenched. So we so far successfully develop those routes so companies don't leave once they're successful here.
And if you thought there were opportunities to do things better, where do you see, if you had your druthers, where would you improve upon things?
What was the last part? Sorry.
If you had your druthers, meaning county comes to you, administrators come to you, and Andrew, what would you like to do different that you think will achieve in greater success? What's on the list?
First on that list would be the investment in scientific cores, pieces of very expensive scientific equipment that we could buy and manage as a scientific core, so that more chemistry-based and research-based organizations would be attracted to this location rather than having to go 40 miles up the road. And to have access to those pieces of equipment. Obviously, they're too expensive for a young company to afford. Right now, we do have access to the university's cores, but there's always a desire for more versus what faculty is using and what others are able to use. So that would be a very important piece of infrastructure in the improvement that we could make. And then secondly, wet lab space that we could rent benches for smaller companies as they grow in that chemistry and sort of drug discovery, drug commercialization phase. We get numerous inquiries from that kind of company that we just have to turn away right now. It's very expensive to build, as you know, and then to equip with all of that equipment is extremely expensive. So for us as a very small special district government to afford that is not feasible. And the private sector doesn't want to do it without the assurance that it will fill up very quickly and they can charge pretty high rents. So if the public sector invests in those spaces, you can charge a more reasonable rent. And I'm confident that let's say 25,000 square foot wet lab space would be rented out pretty quickly with companies that would then grow and when they get funding, build their own and stay close.
Out of curiosity, has there ever been any conversations to approaching a private company to say, all right, if you agree to invest here, we'll see to it that you get first rights to or preferential treatment to rights to entrepreneurs' IP?
We have, but not really with companies who understand life science companies' evolution. There are several. I mean, I've interacted with Alexandria Real Estate throughout my career. They're Scripps landlord out in California. They've got multiple assets around North Carolina and several other places. They had an investment here for a little while in Florida and pulled out. So even the sophisticated people over time haven't seen enough to really sink their teeth in. So we're very willing to have those conversations. The South Florida, the Florida Atlantic University, and the Research Park of 2025 are very different from those of even 10 years ago. So there's a lot more sophistication in the companies we're working with, greater quality IP they're generating and higher quality students they're hiring from the university as it has increased its quality of education. So it's a different environment. So it's probably time to have those conversations again, because as I say, we've kept track of the inquiries we've had, and they're starting to stack up.
I guess the other, that's one thought. The other thought that comes to me. So we're recording this in September 25. We'll find out whether or not tariffs stay in place, given a recent court ruling. I think we should find out next month. But let's just, for a moment, presume they do. I would think that'd be incentives for a lot of foreign national companies to come to Florida and partner with the research park to invest on the campus. Have you seen interest coming in, or?
We have foreign-owned companies as well as U.S. companies that were either overseas already or were about to and are now rethinking plans. So yes, those conversations have happened, and some are ongoing. So that, when this policy was announced, or even during the election campaign, that opportunity was not lost on anyone in the economic development world.
Fantastic. Andrew, really enjoyed our conversation. Unfortunately, we're close to wrapping up. Before we do, I always enjoy hearing people's takes on retrospectives. And so, as you look back in this role, but more broadly in your career, any words of wisdom or advice you'd either give to yourself or any of our listeners to what you wish you would have known when you first started out?
I think anyone really involved in economic development needs to understand real estate in a quite deep way. And I didn't really appreciate that when I got here, particularly when you're running something like a research park. I mean, the value proposition is on the land. So really understanding how land is financed, owned, and so on is a great benefit to certainly people in my role, but even economic developers generally, as they look at where companies locate and how they finance it and who the landlords are and so on. So I think investing more time in learning about that, maybe doing a minor in it in university would have been good. And the value of relationships has been phenomenal for me. Building relationships, maintaining them, and having them travel with me as I go through different roles has added a lot to my knowledge, the things I'm able to achieve through that network. So I would, as much as I did as I was younger, I would say redouble those efforts and really invest in the people around you.
Was there a particular moment when you realized that you wish you would have invested in your network sooner?
I don't think so. I think I took over in my first role from someone very wise. So he gave me advice to make sure that I got to know the right people around the county as quickly as possible and as well as possible. So I think I've been doing that, at least for the time I've been working in Florida, which is 20 plus years at this point.
I think it's great advice. A little bit in the weeds. I'm just out of curiosity. So I personally enjoy sitting for meals with people I'm getting to know. I find that it's communal. We both can relate. But have you adopted any practices of ways to make connections over the years that you find really do a great job of, cutting through how busy we can all be?
There isn't really a substitute for personal contact, and breaking bread is a great way to build trust and build a relationship. But I've also found, we're all, as you said, very busy. We often have big events that are important to our individual roles. So I try to go to those celebrations of my network as often as possible to show support for what they're doing and learn from what they're doing. And they see that and they reciprocate. And I think, again, it just builds a depth to the relationship that is very important.
Fantastic. Andrew, before we wrap up, I'd love to give you an opportunity to recognize anyone in your personal or professional network who's had a material impact on you over the years.
Well, I would have to say my wife, who's
all right.
taken the hits over the years, supporting me and traveling with me through my career. But I think in terms of building relationships in South Florida, building the tech ecosystem, my friend Imran Siddiqui is a great person He and I are very much aligned in thought and approach to economic development. And recently he's taken on the role as president of the South Florida Tech Hub, which is an association of all the tech companies around South Florida to empower each other and get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses and support each other. So I'm glad he's got that role, and his thinking and his mentorship as a friend has been very important.
Fantastic. Well, shout out to them both. Andrew, before we wrap up, if there are any members of our audience who would like to get a hold of you or learn more about the Research Park, how can they do so?
Research Park website is researchparkfau.com. There's lots of information there, both on the park itself and global ventures that I talked about. And for me, I'm on Instagram at AndrewD561. And then on all the socials, the Research Park is basically Research Park FAU.
Fantastic.
There's lots of stuff out there. Happy to discuss with anyone.
Love it. Andrew, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kristian. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And again, for the benefit of our audience, Andrew Duffell, President, Research Park at Florida Atlantic University. Again, I'm your host, Kristian Marquez. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Innovators and Investors Podcast. Take care. Kristian Marquez here. Thank you so much for listening to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. If you're a successful founder or an investor who would like to be on the podcast, please visit podcast.finstratmgmt.com/podcast-guest. If you've got something out of this interview, please share this episode on social media. If you know someone that would be a great guest, please tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Innovators and Investors. I'd love to see your posts and suggestions. We're regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you catch each new episode, please subscribe to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. And your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and it means a lot to me and my team. Would you like to know more? Go to our website, finstratmgmt.com, or follow us on LinkedIn or on X. Our handle is @finstratmgmt. This is Kristian Marquez. Thank you for listening. Until next time.